So the second day, that today we are going to talk about coding comparisons of various types and mind maps and queries, word frequency searches, matrix coding, sets, node matrices, exporting data and results, and review of both days. So let's get started with that and what we had done yesterday. Just quickly going through Nvivo. So again, I just want to give it a brief overview. This is the data button, and we did file navigation. We had files in the navigation menu. We had file classification. In files, you have all the files. In file navigation, in classification, you classify them into different folders. So externals are those external document where you don't have the metadata for those documents. Then we have nodes, the one which we call themes. So in themes, we are using the sample project, and the reason for using sample project is, again, because I had some requests that I would do this data interpretation or analyzing with some other data. But if I do it with some other data, you won't have the copy of that one. So it's just like using two different books in a classroom. So we could not do that because then it will be completely dissimilar to what I'm using. And so this one is nodes, which is what we call themes. And we noded some, we made some themes of our own, but mostly the themes we're using are already done in the sample project. So we will continue with using that, and we will move on with that, because then you'll be able to tell where I am in the software. Then we had cases, and somebody asked a question about how cases are different. Cases are different from all the files and data because cases would specify to a particular person. So if you, in an interview document, Nvivo would understand that you are just having one document with different kind of text. But when you specify to some particular person, then Nvivo identified as, interview of Barbara or Aslam or Ahmad or anyone that we are having its interviewee. Then we talked about memos. So this is a memo, and memo is something that you would like to have for your co-researcher, that you write a note to them that this is what you're doing with your data. Annotation was what we did with the already existing file. We just added something like a self-note on the top of a word. And then memo links. I'm not going to details of all that because we yesterday covered that. Probably you have seen the video on YouTube as well. And by the way, the YouTube video is much clearer in sense of visuals, because the picture right side that you can see right now is cropped, and then you are able to have a better interface. So today we're talking about searches, and today is the day where we talk about the wonderful things Nvivo can do for your research as you come to understand the visualization of your data. So the first thing is, let's start with, I'm just going to do this randomly. Select all of them, select all the nodes that you have, and right click on your nodes. This is what we did yesterday, and say visualize. So when we visualize, we see all the different charts of Nvivo nodes. So when we talk about that one, we have different negative water quality, different nodes that we did, the themes that we had are being represented here. And the best part is that you can always copy or export or print. For example, if I want to print this, I'll print it, and I can save it as a PDF as well. You can save it as a PDF. You can just put that. Let's say I save it as a PDF, and I put that on my desktop. So when I go there, it's lying on my desktop. And you can also insert that into your Word document in your research document. So we can do that. The other is that you can play around with this coding chart. Let's say you want to change the hierarchy, the coding references, right? You can see a different view. You can see the coded items. The colors are changing. You want to code it sorted by items coded. Click on this one and it completely changes which area of economy was coded the most. So you can see the fishing area, and then you can see the fishing industry area was the maximum coded area. And you can do that with, because I'm doing the coded for notes, but when I come down coded for files, it will completely change it, because the survey responses that I had the maximum number of coding as compared to the other ones. So you can see the hierarchy. This will give you the visual representation of how your nodes are represented. For example, if I want to do that with attributes of cases, this is not applicable here. So some of them, if you're doing them and you don't get it right, it means that it's not applicable over there. But then yes, if you have to do it by attributes, you have to find the age group. Let's say you want to do the age group, and you see the age groups are different. 50 to 59, 40 to 49, unassigned. So this depends on how you have done your coding. How have you done your coding? So that's one of the visualization that I just wanted to show you like quickly, but then we have more. As we do the queries, I'll close this down now. As we have queries, we'll move on with what kind of queries we have. And I'll go to the top and I have the query button. So when I do the query button, the first thing is text search. The text search is one of the most famous query, and we see it a lot in how to just make sense of your data. What is in my data, what was coded, what was there. So let's say, because this is a sample project, so I'll just type phishing as one of the words that I want to find. So you will go, as I type phishing, and you'll go to the run query section and you'll run it. All right, so you can see that it is showing you the word phishing is in all these references. Right, it's 4 times and 0.59%, social, economic, etc. So you can see the number. So this is Margaret talks more about phishing. So we have seen the 13 times references, 13 references to that. You can also see that in form of references. Okay, now you can see who talked about phishing. So all these have phishing word. Right? You can see that, and when you click on one of those items, it will take you back to the original interview, and you can always trace it back. So I would really be able to go back to your original, so being able to tell again, and I do another one. Country, and I run the query. So the country word is being given by these many times. Now I did references last time. I'll do word tree. So you can see the word tree, and I can maximize that by coming over here, and you can see that the items are getting bigger and smaller. You're unable to see all that, but we can export it easily. Let's say export that to my desktop. So when I do that, you'll be able to see, okay, that was the one from the last time, and this is the one that we just did. So you're able to see country has been coded in so many ways. like who talked about what. You can always go back and click on you just want to get the general perception about the country, you can do that. So this is the visualization of your data. All right, so this is one, and then so you can save the query over here. If you want to save the query, it will save it. For example, you save that, you have to give it a different name. I just don't want to give it a name right now. So let's move on. Okay, so this is a text search. I mean, if you want to get a sense of your data, for example, you want to go to files and you want to go to, let's say, interviews. So you go to interviews and you want to find all interviews text search. So you want to do a text search where you want to do that in files and external. You can also select items where you want to do your search. You just want to do in the node section, it can also do that for you. And when you select it, you have to first figure out a word. So let's do a word that is marshes, because it's a topic which includes marshes probably. These people would talk about marshes in their interviews. And again, have a word view or a reference. Okay, so this is one of the text search that we can quickly make sense of our data. What can you find in your data very quickly? The other one, very important one, is the word frequency. So the word frequency is how many times a particular word has been said. Let's say you just don't want to select any particular item, you just are running the query. So you come here, you run the query, and you see the result. So it's going to be a big, document. That's why it's taking some time. So beach is length is 5 sentences. If you're doing by sentences or words, count is 259, and it's 0.67% of your documents, all of them, because you're doing it in file and externals. Now, if you want to do that in word cloud, you change into a word cloud, and you can see very easily visually that beach is the most prominent word in the whole visual. So you can do that, and you can also change the colors and stuff. You can play with it, and you can easily export that. Let's say I export. It will go to my desktop. So you can find it over here. So I can do this, and I can insert this into any document that I'm using as my study. All right, let's go back. And you can always, tailor it according to your needs, what you are focusing on. For example, you're just looking at the nodes. So you click on the node, and if you're doing it for all nodes or selected nodes, and it will generate a new query, you have to run the query again. And the node is actually not about beach. The node is talking about water and people. So water and people. So it means that when you coded the data into different themes, the one is coding. So what we do with coding? Coding, if I'm doing coding, first of all, I'll the nodes that I'm coding from, I'll select, click on that, and the next one I have, let's say within the attitude, who is talking positively about, what did I choose in the beginning? Community change. Who is talking positively about community change? And when you come and select that, you run the query, and then you'll be able to see all these different references, right? So you're running this query on the basis of different codings. So will the young kids continue to do that? I don't know. Time will tell. So this is an attitude that is being said about the community change. And you can, of course, do that with selecting more particular files, and you can always come back to what you have done. So this is coding. Again, it depends on how you want to add more to that. You can add more, and you can make it more specified. Let's say I click on this one, and I also use persons. Who is that person that I want to see? Income group, or let's say I want to come and talk about gender. So when I talk about gender, it will give me different values, which means that I can tell about either male or female. So let's say female, and I run the query again. The query is invalid because there's no such comparison that you can draw. So that's one of the reasons that you can do. Different things in Nvivo. Sometimes it will not run, and sometimes it's not your fault, just because you have clicked the wrong button, or maybe you selected two different things, it will be invalid. So that's one of the coding section that we do. I'll close this down, and I'll come to matrix coding. So matrix coding is, as you understand, the word matrix is like you can mix or you can match anything with anything else. So for example, I have file external, and I want to add something from here, and I say add, and I select an item. I select a node, which is not all of them, but maybe infrastructure, and I select it, and in the comparison, I add in the other column any item which is related to, let's say, cases and people. So when I do that, I want to see how Helen is talking about that particular theme. So we had infrastructure, and we had Helen talking about, are they talking about this particular theme or not? So let's run the query. Yes, it's just 0, which says 0. I mean, just one result, and that says 0. You can see it over here. So there's no match, and we can add something else to that. Let's add more people. If we have all the cases, okay, so it will not allow me to do all the cases, but you have to pick people with interview participants. When you run the query again, and you have to run it again, and again, it gives me no result. So probably I'm not doing enough selection. I have to do extensive selection. So let's say I'm selecting all the nodes, and then I run my query. So you can now see that my query is infrastructure, none, and then you can see only one person is talking about that in negative sense. All right. So again, starting from the point where we left, we were doing different queries, which was matrix coding, and I think we kind of covered that. So I'll move on with Crosstab. So you're doing different tabs of query. So you're trying to find out something that is, you want to do columns with rows. So what you want to put in your columns and what you want to put into your rows. Let's say I want to do that, an attribute here. This one, add, and I add, let's say, a node, which is balance. And I select that, and I run the query. Okay, I have to select the other one as well. All right, so when you do this, then you can do the classification, whether you want to get it from the interview section or where. All right, so this is the cross tab that you can run the query on the basis of different tabs. And then it is the cases that you can select. So I did the attributes, the first one from the nodes, and the second was from the cases and attributes. So I can only, the difference between the matrix query and the cross tab is that in matrix query you can do all sorts of different analysis, like crossing different items. But when you're doing the cross tab, you can only do with nodes with cases. It's like cases are the people or places, and nodes are the team. So you're trying to find out who was talking about what. So I have to add a particular person from here. When I add that, it will take me to cases. So I pick people, and I do interview. Let's say I do Helen or Dorothy or Daniel. So I say Daniel and maybe Dorothy again, and I select. So when I do that, I run my query and it gives me this result, which means balance and community change. So Daniel did not talk about that, and community change was spoken about by Dorothy. And then Dorothy also talked about community change 5 times, and total was 8 times. Daniel talked about it 3 times, and Dorothy talked about it 5 times. And Daniel and Dorothy both did not talk about balance at all. So this will give you, some kind of perception of what you want to do with your result. And you can always export, print, or share. Okay. Now this is the coding, the cross tab. You can always go back and you can go for the last run query, or you could save your queries. So the other one that I want to do is, and the other one is a coding comparison is, let's do a coding comparison. So what kind of coding comparison you want to do? You want to do all nodes. You want to come here, you follow that link. Let's say you are 3 different researchers working on the same project. Now this is called inter-rater reliability, because if you have coded something and the other person is also coding in the same manner, it means that your data has been authenticated. Your data is an authentic source of research. So you're getting something. Let's say I do Yase's work, and then I do in another one, because I've already checked off Yase, so it's going to show me the other 3 people who are working with me. And you have to create that by yourself. I mean, sample project has it created, but that's why we can see it. When you say done and you run the query, you can see these different codings that we have done together, and it can show you by unweighted values or weighted values, right? And you want to do coded, sentences or characters. And you have to run the query again. So you can see that all these things were overlapping. Probably we found the same results, and that's why we can see it. And of course, you can export and print it. You can export and print it. I mean, this was, I think, the burning question yesterday, that what happens when we are doing all this work on Nvivo, how can we actually make it work in our own data? How can we see it? How can we visualize it? So this is how you visualize it. You take it back to your document. All right, so I'll close this down and we will open a new project, a new tab. Now, there's some interesting items in Explore, and probably this looks like different on your system if it's a PC system. Let's do some of these highlighted ones. I mean, starting from the mind map. If I click on mind map, I want to give it, I mean, this is mind map, which is really helpful in doing your literature review, and also when you are you have your data but you just want to make sense of what do you want to do with it. So mind map will be like, I want to have environment as my theme, and I say okay. So I can say environment. What is the central word for environment? I'll have a text entry here and I'll say population. When I do population, it will be made in this particular manner, right? And if you want to insert a child note, you can come over here to the child. You have to edit it first. You can also right click on this one. You can add, insert a child idea. And you can write it in, let's say, population, social value system as one of my sub-theme. I'm just making it up right now, but depends on what you're doing with your work. Then if I want to make a further child node from this one, I can have a sibling node. Sibling means a brother or sister, so you're making a brother or sister of this one. It will be another the same hierarchy, like this one is a central one and this one is a hierarchy. So I can say social value system, the other one is religion. Okay, so I mean, I can keep on doing that and I can populate that. So whichever you want to edit the label, you can change it by doing double click on the population and it will be different one. So you want to change it to something else, it become test, right? So I just change it. You can do different shapes of that. You can put it in different format. You can have a different color for that one. So you can have a different border line, right? So you can do all those things with it, and then of course you can put that in top down and you can export it. You can always put that into your document. So this was mind map. The other one is a concept map. Let's say I want to give a concept map, my recent studies. And by the way, these will go into the map section. If I click on map, you can see complexity view, environment, my recent study, I just made this one. So I can do that by dragging. Let's say I have made a lot of nodes, which are the themes, and I am bringing them in. I want to drag it and drop it. I want to drag it, drag economy and drop it. I want to drag this one and I want to drop it. I want to drag this one and drop it. I want to drag a lot of it. Just drag 4 of them together and bring them in. And now I have to, let's say, make some connections. I have to first add it. Yes, I have enabled the connectors. So how do I want to connect? Is it the one way? Yes, the one way between this and this. So it will show me the one way. if there's one way from this to this connector, one way from this to this. Let's say I don't want one way, but I want symmetrical. The symmetrical between these two means it will go both ways. So it has to go back and forth. So infrastructure in natural environment create different shapes, and I can add text to it. And then I want to, let's say, bring in this small little man who is, let's say, you or me, researcher. So that's me. And I'm looking at that from the top. And I'm seeing how my policy and memorable codes and infrastructure and all that I've dragged into my study works. And of course, you can do all those formatting things with it. Okay, so you have done this one. Of course, you can again share as a PDF, share notes, put it in notes, and you can all do all those kind of things. All right, let's close this down. So let's say I come to this one, which is chart. Real estate development is my node, one of the nodes. And I want to create a chart of this one. I'll go up and I'll say chart. You can see a chart is being populated, and I can drag it from 100% to, let's say, half of it, and then you can see that the number of coding references and what has been coded. The survey responses, they had the maximum number of coding. And this shows you how it works, right? So all the other are in smaller way. If you want to do the percentage coverage, you can come and say the percentage coverage is different. You want to do it for cases. I came here and did it for cases. Now case would be different, and I can make it smaller again. So these people have talked about real estate development this many times. If I want to do it for selected cases, and I have to select a case, select cases means people. Let's say I check the people and see who did that in an interview, and Betty is talking about something, and I want to choose on that. So the chart is being populated just like a block because I just picked one person. If you want to do it from files, it will be again different. You want to do format, you want to change the format, you want to do it in this way, or you want to change the color, you want to change it to something else. I mean, you can do all those sorts of things. All right, so this is another item that we did. So this is what we did, the charts, and then hierarchy chart. I think we have done this one before. This is the one we started off with in the beginning. So I'm not going into details on this one. In the top, you can see another one, comparison diagram. So what do you want to compare? Let's say you want to compare nodes or files. I want to compare some nodes. And I want to compare, let's say, balance, and I'll hold command or any key that helps you pick two items at the same time, and I'll do attitude. When I go select, it gives me comparison between those two items, right? So I can maximize it, and you can see that there are all different sorts of things that we can do with it. All right, so this is what we can do. We can minimize it again to the regular view, and of course you can export it. You can print it, you can export it, and you can see what has been done in this particular chart. All right, so this is another way of doing it, and I want to do another comparison, then I'll do something different. Okay. Okay, so I close it down because we have done this one now. And let's do another one, which is close the items. And then we can do visualization, and in visualization we did the comparison one. We want to do the file classification sheet. I think you remember from the last day, because somebody also asked the question, so what do we do with the file classification sheet? Let's find it out. If we want to do interviews, and all the participants that we had were these, and they had interviews at this time, and we want to see the classification of them. So Barbara, Henry, they had interview date and time, and this is the date and this is the time, the day, and then Charles is talking about his or her idea. So we can always take it back to our document. Another one is the file classification, is case classification, the top one where we can see the case classification. And I think somebody also asked about demographic information of people. So if you have done coding according to demographic information, you'll be able to do it for persons, let's say places. And I do the persons one, and you can see that age group, with who they were. And then we can also do the classification sheet where they have all the information according to their demographic, according to their location, township, community, generation. I mean, all the questions that you have coded for it. So you have to first code them, and then the Nvivo software will be able to tell about what you should be doing with it. So that's that, and then I guess we have done this part. Another one is that if you want to do, you want to export everything, you want to export the whole project. I showed you yesterday that you can just export the whole project from Nvivo. Let me close this one. Close, and then we don't want to save it, but I just want to open it again and see what happens when we do the other sorts of comparisons. So I guess this time you are seeing what Nvivo can do with your data. All right, so we come to explore again, and we do file classification. We did the case classification. We also did all these, the comparison diagram, compare files, and then you do this, and then it will compare everything for you. All right, so this is one of the usage of Nvivo, that Nvivo can help you export everything that you want. Another important part is how you can export different files. Like, for example, I have these different files that I want to export, like interviews, and I have coded the interview over here, and I want to see the interview in how it was coded. So I'll go to the chart. I can also make a chart of this one. And the other part is that I can do the stripe diagram. Let me go and open one of the interview again. and then I can do layout. Okay, coding stripes. This is one of the important button where you can do coding for recently coded item, all nodes. So if you are doing nodes, let's select that, and you can see on the right side anything that you have coded in this interview will highlight. Let's say you want to click on this one, and this is where the coloring was important that I was telling you yesterday, that if you are coding something, add a color of your choice and it will help you visualize your data in a better way. So I want to do this one. I just want to see this node, which is a theme. So it shows me that it was highlighted here. Robert is talking about this particular theme, and there are other community environment change that Henry Robert, they're talking about continuously. So coding stripe, and you can change coding stripe according to whatever you want it to see or happen. So most nodes, most coded. Let's do that. Let's do it for all the files, and then we can do the coding stripes. You can see every document that we are opening. Let's see, we have another literature, and then we open it for coding stripes. It will show us if we have coded anything, it will show up. If we haven't, it will not show anything. So this is a PDF diagram that the sample project has not shown coded, so that's why it's showing nothing, and that's why we have no show. All right, so this is that, and then what else? I think we just want to do little bit of sets. What are sets? Set is another container. If you are, let me close it down. If you want to do a set, you can bring in different items into your set, right? For example, you have an interview that you want to bring, like Susan, and right click on that, you say add to a set. You are making either a similar set or you're bringing into the already done set. So I'm doing it into a set already created, and I select it. So set is again a container where you can bring in an interview, a survey form, an image, or any like Twitter response or SPSS sheet that you have uploaded. So you can bring them together and you can name them according to your understanding. So community node, for example, interview, interview without nodes, nodes for coding comparison. So whatever sets you want to create and you want to refer to them as you go back to search for different items, because your data is going to grow as with the passage of time. So I guess this is what we had for today, and we talked about maps, we talked about different searches, we looked at different ways of creating our diagrams, and yes, somebody was asking a question about transcription. So if you go to create and then you come to transcription, and Nvivo will ask you to transcribing audio and video just got easier, and then you have to log in. Unfortunately, I don't have the access because I have already consumed my 15 minutes of free trial. I have a student version copy, which means that I don't have access to all the items. And if you buy the Pro one, I guess you will have the access. Even then you have to buy transcription with an added amount of money. So transcription has been made easier, but it does not mean that it is free of cost. So that's what we had for today.